Have you ever met someone who seemed charming, helpful, maybe even deeply spiritual, but something just felt off? At first, they appeared generous, deeply engaged in your world, saying all the right things. But slowly, your energy begins to drain. You question your worth, your clarity dissolves, and somehow you start doubting your own intuition. By the time you realize something's wrong, you're already entangled. There's a particular sign that often shows up early. A behavior so subtle, it slips right past most people. But this one trait can turn relationships into emotional battlegrounds, friendships into energy traps, and peaceful lives into cycles of confusion and anxiety. And here's the truth most people miss. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes, it's masked behind kindness, spiritual talk, or even acts of service. But the damage it causes? Deep, deliberate, and often invisible. In this video, we're going to expose the sign, what it looks like, how it shows up in different kinds of relationships, and why it's so hard to recognize before it's too late. We'll explore real-life examples, draw from psychology, spiritual wisdom, and lived experience to illuminate the patterns. Most importantly, we'll give you tools to spot it early and walk away confidently. Because your peace is sacred. And sometimes, the most loving act is to run. Stay with me through this video. By the end, you'll not only recognize this sign, but you'll trust yourself enough never to ignore it again. If you've ever felt emotionally drained by someone and couldn't explain why, this is the insight you've been searching for. The hidden danger of charm. It's the trait we often associate with charisma, confidence, and emotional intelligence. But not all charm is created equal. Some forms are laced with manipulation, cloaked in pleasantness, and designed to disarm your defenses. The most dangerous people rarely come with red flags waving in the wind. They show up smiling, attentive, saying exactly what you need to hear. They mirror your values, your pain, your dreams. You feel seen, maybe even deeply understood. But what you're actually experiencing is a psychological tactic known as love bombing or mirroring. These techniques are often used not out of genuine connection, but as tools to gain your trust quickly. It's the fast lane to your heart, bypassing natural caution and creating a false sense of safety. And by the time you realize this wasn't authenticity, it was strategy, you're already emotionally invested. Why is this so effective? Because we're wired to respond to empathy and attention. When someone listens deeply, agrees with us, and appears to care, it activates feelings of connection and safety. But what if that connection is based on manipulation? In spiritual circles, this becomes even more dangerous. Someone can speak the language of healing, mindfulness, or energy alignment, yet use it as a mask. Their charm isn't about building, it's about controlling. And often they're skilled enough to make you feel like the problem if things go wrong. Ask yourself, have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you lost a part of your clarity? Even though everything seemed fine. That might have been charm used as a weapon. Real charm rooted in integrity doesn't push. It doesn't rush or overpromise. It builds slowly and respects your inner wisdom. False charm, on the other hand, feels urgent, intense, and often too perfect. If this resonates with you, let me know in the comments below. Your story might help someone else break free. The subtle art of gaslighting. Gaslighting isn't just someone denying your experience. It's a slow erosion of your sense of reality. At first, it might look like innocent corrections. I never said that. You must be remembering it wrong. You second-guess yourself, wondering if you're being too sensitive. But over time, something deeper starts to unravel. Your self-trust. When someone consistently rewrites reality, you begin to feel unmoored. It's as if the ground beneath you shifts a little more with every interaction. You start to doubt your memory, your feelings, even your instincts. This is not forgetfulness, it's a tactic, and the goal isn't clarity, it's control. Gaslighters don't need to yell. In fact, many do it with calm voices and spiritual words. They'll say things like, "I think you're projecting," or, "That's just your ego talking." They weaponize psychology and spirituality to dismiss your very real pain. Why does this work? Because as spiritual seekers, we value growth. We're willing to examine ourselves. So when someone presents our discomfort as a flaw in us, we go inward, we reflect, and in doing so, we might miss the manipulation. This is the poison of spiritual gaslighting. It makes you feel like your boundaries are unevolved. Like saying no means you're not awakened enough. But real growth honors your truth. It doesn't silence it. Buddhism teaches us to trust direct experience. Be a lamp unto yourself, the Buddha said. Gaslighting dims that inner lamp, making you question the light inside. Have you ever had someone make you feel irrational for expressing a need or setting a boundary? That's not mindfulness. That's distortion. The longer you stay in that fog, the more disconnected you become from your intuition, until eventually, you stop trusting your gut altogether. If this idea speaks to your journey, give this video a like so it reaches others who need it. True connection thrives on vulnerability. But in the hands of the wrong person, your openness becomes a map, one they'll use to navigate, manipulate, and control you. When someone encourages you to open up quickly, it can feel like intimacy. They ask probing questions, seem deeply interested, and offer their own stories of hardship. But what's often happening is emotional data collection. They're learning what wounds you carry, what needs go unmet, what you long for. Not to nurture you, but to leverage that information later. You might hear things like, "I know what you've been through," or "I understand you better than anyone ever has." It feels validating, even comforting, but when that intimacy is rushed or too intense too soon, it's a sign to pause. Real trust takes time. Manipulative people rush the process. Why? Because the sooner they have your emotional blueprint, the easier it becomes to pull strings when things don't go their way. And here's the twist. When you eventually set a boundary or express discomfort, they'll use your past against you. You're only acting like this because your dad abandoned you. Or, this is your fear of rejection talking. These insights, once shared in confidence, become weapons. In healthy relationships, your vulnerability is held with reverence. In toxic dynamics, it's used as leverage. Psychologically, this is tied to something called emotional coercion. It's not about direct threats. It's about subtle nudges and guilt-inducing comments that push you to comply, even when your inner voice says no. And spiritually, it's the opposite of compassion. Compassion doesn't manipulate your story, it holds space for it. If someone uses your pain to control you, they're not healing you. They're harming you. Have you ever shared something deep with someone and later regretted it? That regret is your intuition waking up. Have you noticed how some people always find a way to twist situations so that they're never at fault? No matter what happens, someone else is to blame. And often that someone is you. This is one of the most subtle yet exhausting signs of emotional manipulation. The inability to take responsibility. It starts small. A missed appointment. A forgotten promise. "I was just so busy," they'll say. Or, "You should have reminded me." But gradually, it escalates. Suddenly, you're responsible for their moods, their failures, even their poor choices. This behavior is deeply linked to narcissistic tendencies. A true narcissist cannot tolerate the discomfort of being wrong, so rather than reflect inward, they project outward. And if you're close to them, you become their emotional scapegoat. They'll say things like, "I wouldn't have reacted like that if you hadn't pushed me," or "You're making me into the bad guy." And after a while, you begin to believe it. You tiptoe around their moods, carefully phrase your words, all to avoid conflict, or worse, guilt. Spiritually, this violates one of the core tenets of growth, accountability. We cannot grow unless we can see our own shadow. When someone refuses to own their part in a conflict, they stay stuck and keep you stuck with them. Buddhist teachings remind us of the importance of right view, seeing clearly without distortion. But in these relationships, distortion becomes the norm. Your truth is minimized, their truth becomes law, and the actual reality, it gets buried under layers of justification and blame. Have you ever walked away from an argument feeling like you were the one who did something wrong, even though you know you didn't? That's not resolution. That's emotional manipulation. True maturity owns its mess. It says, "I'm sorry," without needing a defense. It listens without deflecting. Anything less, and you'll end up carrying someone else's burden on your back. If this resonates, share your thoughts in the comments. Your clarity might light the path for someone still lost in confusion. Control doesn't always come with a raised voice or strict rules. Sometimes it's draped in concern. It sounds like, "I just want what's best for you," or "I'm only saying this because I care." But beneath the caring words lies a need to direct your choices, your emotions, even your identity. This type of control is insidious because it masquerades as love. They'll ask where you're going, who you're with, what you're doing. Not out of curiosity, but from a deep need to monitor. And if you don't answer, cue the guilt. Why are you hiding things? Or, I thought we were closer than that. You may find yourself justifying harmless actions. It's just a friend from work. Or, I only stayed late because of a meeting. You begin explaining yourself constantly, not because you've done something wrong, but because you're being treated like you have. Why does this happen? Because control gives the illusion of security to the controller. When they feel uncertain or vulnerable, they don't look inward. They reach outward, tightening their grip on others instead. In spiritual partnerships, this often appears as the guide or healer archetype taken too far. They position themselves as the one who knows more, sees more, and therefore has a say in your path. But true wisdom doesn't dominate, it empowers. From a psychological view, this behavior stems from deep insecurity, often masked by arrogance. The person might genuinely believe they know what's best for you, but intention doesn't excuse intrusion. Respect is the boundary. Have you ever noticed your world getting smaller while someone else's opinion loomed larger? That's a red flag, not a partnership. Buddhism teaches detachment, not from love, but from control. To love someone is to allow them their freedom, to honor their soul's timing. Anything less is fear, not love. If you've ever been told what to feel, think, or decide under the guise of care, it's time to take your power back. If this insight helped you see something more clearly, leave a like. Someone else might need that same light today. It starts like a dream. You're praised, uplifted, maybe even idolized. You're unlike anyone I've ever met. You're the only one who truly gets me. The connection feels electric, destined, almost too good to be true. And then, it changes. Suddenly the admiration fades. The tone shifts. Now, you're too sensitive, not supportive enough, or not who they thought you were. You're confused, spinning, trying to get back to that early phase, the one that felt so warm, so whole. This pattern is known as idealization and devaluation. It's a manipulative cycle where someone lifts you up only to pull you down, not always in loud or cruel ways, often through subtle withdrawal, disapproval, or passive-aggressive comments that leave you questioning your worth. The psychological impact is immense. You become addicted to their validation, chasing that initial high, and when it disappears, you blame yourself. If I just do more, if I can just be who I was in the beginning. You forget that their change in behavior had little to do with your actions, and everything to do with their control. Spiritually, this is deeply destabilizing, because it messes with your center. You stop trusting your essence. You confuse love with performance, and the result? You abandon your own self-worth for the approval of someone who's already decided you'll never be enough. Not consistently, anyway. In Buddhism, there's a powerful truth: impermanence. Everything changes, but love rooted in truth changes together, not against. When someone uses change as a weapon, flipping from devotion to disdain, it's not love. It's power play. Have you ever felt like you were constantly trying to get back to a version of a relationship that only existed in the beginning? That's not love's natural evolution. That's emotional bait and switch. Healthy relationships don't have to be perfect, but they're consistent. You don't wonder if the floor will drop out from under you. You feel steady, seen, safe. If this speaks to your experience, leave a comment. Someone else might feel less alone because of your voice. Have you ever felt someone pull away emotionally? Not because they're overwhelmed, but because they're trying to punish you? It's one of the most painful forms of manipulation. Not saying something directly, but withholding presence, warmth, or connection to control your behavior. This tactic is known as emotional withdrawal, and it cuts deep. At first, you might wonder if they're just upset or need space. But over time, a pattern emerges. You notice that anytime you express a boundary, a need, or even a disagreement, they go cold. They stop responding to texts. They become passive. They avoid eye contact. They act indifferent, and the silence, deafening. This isn't a healthy need for solitude. It's a psychological tool. If you don't comply, I'll remove affection. It's designed to teach you that your truth costs connection. Why does it work? Because as humans, we're wired for belonging. When someone we care about withdraws emotionally, it activates primal fear, the fear of abandonment. In spiritual language, it touches the wound of separation, the illusion that we are disconnected from love. You start bending, apologizing for things you didn't do, trying harder, walking on eggshells just to bring the warmth back. But you're not in a relationship. You're in a behavioral training program. This pattern is especially dangerous when wrapped in spiritual or emotional language. They might say, "I just need time to process," but it becomes a recurring script. You're left holding the discomfort, always the one reaching out first. Buddhism teaches compassion, karuna, but compassion without clarity can become codependence. And clarity says this: love does not use silence as a sword. If someone disappears emotionally whenever you show up authentically, that's not spiritual detachment. That's punishment. Relationships built on real connection allow for conflict, for truth, for difference. They don't shut down the moment things get uncomfortable. If this unlocked something for you, let me know in the comments. Your honesty might be someone else's breakthrough. Some people never raise their voice. They don't demand attention or lash out. Instead, they sigh, carry burdens silently, and constantly play the role of the selfless giver. At first, it feels noble, even admirable, but soon, it starts to suffocate you. This is the mask of martyrdom, a manipulative tactic cloaked in constant sacrifice. They give so much, but expect silent, often invisible, repayment. It begins with excessive generosity. They go out of their way for you, always available, always doing everything to keep the relationship afloat. But there's an unspoken expectation. You must now owe them. You'll hear things like, "After everything I've done for you," or, "I guess I just care more than you do." And suddenly, you feel guilty for resting, for asking for something, for even having a separate need. This manipulation works because it hijacks your empathy. You don't want to seem ungrateful. You see their pain, their effort, and you start sacrificing your own needs to keep them happy. But here's the catch: it's never enough. Martyrs don't give from fullness, they give to control, and their suffering becomes currency. The more they sacrifice, the more moral high ground they claim. From a spiritual perspective, this is a distortion of true compassion. Buddhism teaches the path of the middle way, not overgiving or overdenying, but balance. Martyrdom, in contrast, is imbalance disguised as virtue. In psychological terms, it's a form of covert control. They make you feel indebted, even when you never asked for their sacrifice in the first place. And the emotional toll? Massive. You begin shrinking, dimming, taking up less space, trying not to be a burden, when, in truth, you're not the one imposing at all. Have you ever felt guilty for someone else's choices to overextend themselves? That's not your weight to carry. Real giving is free. It expects nothing in return. It nourishes both the giver and the receiver. If you've lived under the weight of someone else's constant sacrifice, leave a comment. This is how we unlearn false responsibility. Together. It sounds romantic, even spiritual. You complete me. You're my other half. Without you, I'm nothing. At first, these words feel profound, like deep devotion. But underneath the surface lies one of the most toxic illusions in any relationship. This is emotional enmeshment, when a person's sense of self becomes so entangled with yours that boundaries dissolve. Your emotions become their emotions, your decisions, their battleground, and slowly your individuality is no longer sacred. It's seen as betrayal. It often starts in moments of closeness. They want to do everything with you. They text constantly. They're hurt if you need space. They view your independence as distance, your self-care as rejection. What looks like intimacy is actually possession in disguise. From a psychological standpoint, this stems from deep abandonment wounds. The person doesn't know how to be whole within themselves, so they cling to others for identity, stability, and meaning. And while you might feel compassion for that pain, it doesn't justify the erosion of your autonomy. Spiritually, the idea that someone completes you is not love, it's dependency. Real love doesn't complete you. It celebrates your wholeness. The Buddha taught the importance of non-attachment, even in relationships. Not coldness, but the wisdom to love without clinging, to hold space without losing yourself. When someone insists they need you to be okay, that's not romantic. That's a signal. And the weight? It's enormous. You feel responsible for their moods, their healing, their entire emotional state. You start censoring your joy, your needs, even your dreams, just to avoid triggering their insecurity. Have you ever felt like you were being swallowed by someone else's love? That's not soul connection, it's soul entrapment. If someone makes you feel guilty for growing, for glowing, or simply for being your own person. That's your sign. Love is not losing yourself in someone else. It's finding someone who helps you remember who you are. If this part of the journey hit home, let me know. Sometimes one voice saying, "I've felt that too," can be more healing than years of silence. You used to talk to your friends more, call your family regularly, enjoy your hobbies. But now, you're quieter, more withdrawn. You second-guess reaching out to others. And when you do, it somehow turns into a problem. This is the quiet construction of isolation, a slow, deliberate process where the manipulator becomes the center of your world, while everything else is subtly pushed away. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins with small comments. "Why do you always tell your sister everything? I just don't trust your friends. They don't really support you." Or, "I thought we were building something together. Why do you need them?" At first, it might feel like intense love. They want you all to themselves. They're protective. But over time, your circle shrinks. Not because people pulled away, but because you were gently, emotionally nudged to cut them out. Psychologically, this tactic is rooted in domination through dependency. If you're isolated, you become easier to control. Without external voices reflecting your reality, you're left with only theirs. Spiritually, this is deeply dangerous. It disconnects you not just from others but from yourself, from joy, from community, from the mirrors that keep your soul healthy. Buddhism values Sangha, community, as one of the 3 jewels of the path. We don't awaken alone. We need others to walk beside us, to keep us grounded, to reflect our truth when we forget. When someone tries to cut you off from those connections, it's not devotion. It's a power play. Have you ever looked around and realized you no longer feel connected to the people who used to nourish you? That's not a phase. It's a pattern. And if someone engineered that pattern under the guise of love, that's the sign. Healthy love supports your roots. It doesn't rip them up. It wants you surrounded by support, by joy, by freedom. If you've ever had to rebuild your world after a relationship shrank it, your courage deserves to be seen. Share your truth. You never know who you'll inspire. Understanding emotional manipulation is one thing, but what matters most is knowing how to respond, with clarity, courage, and care for your own well-being. These takeaways are designed to be simple yet powerful tools you can use right now to reclaim your space, your peace, and your self-trust. Here are 7 guided reflections and tools to help you identify manipulation early and protect your energy. 1. Ask yourself, do I feel free around this person? Real love feels like freedom, not pressure. If you're constantly walking on eggshells or editing yourself, that's a red flag. Your body often knows before your mind does. Pay attention to any tightening, shrinking, or anxiety in your chest or stomach after interacting with them. Micro insight. Freedom is the compass of authenticity. 2. Keep a truth journal. When reality starts to feel slippery, writing things down can anchor you. Record conversations, how they made you feel, what was said, and what you needed. Later, when you reread it, patterns become clear. You'll start to see if your reality is being rewritten or denied. Micro insight. Your journal doesn't lie. It remembers what you tried to ignore. 3. Reclaim the power of no. Practice saying no without explanation. No is a full sentence. If someone reacts with anger, guilt-tripping, or silence, take note. That's a reflection of them, not your boundary. Healthy people respect limits. Manipulators resist them. Micro insight. Every time you honor your no, you teach your nervous system it's safe to protect yourself. 4. Notice the ratio of giving and receiving. Are you always the one compromising, adjusting, reaching out? Healthy relationships are mutual. Keep a quiet scorecard for 1 week. Who initiates? Who listens? Who supports? If the scales are constantly tipping against you, that's data, not drama. Micro insight. Love is not a performance, it's a partnership. 5. Create a circle of mirrors. Rebuild or strengthen your support system. Talk to people who've known you a long time. Their perspective is a mirror when you lose sight of yourself. Ask them, have I changed in ways that concern you? Their answers can gently wake you up to truths you've suppressed. Micro insight. Your real ones won't let you disappear quietly. 6. Develop the pause practice before responding to manipulation. Pause, breathe, give yourself space to respond rather than react. Say, let me sit with that, or I'll need some time before I answer. This disrupts the cycle and reclaims your power. Micro insight. The pause is where your wisdom waits. 7. Meditate on detachment, not disconnection. Use a simple mantra. I release what is not mine to carry. Visualize returning their energy to them. Not with anger, with love. This isn't about pushing people away. It's about unhooking from their emotional leash. Micro insight. You can love someone and still choose peace over chaos. These tools are not about judgment. They're about discernment. As you begin to practice them, you'll notice your confidence return. Your voice will get louder. Your light, brighter. You don't need anyone's permission to protect your peace. You only need your own trust. The most dangerous people rarely scream. They smile. They listen. They charm. And that's what makes the sign so hard to recognize. It hides behind good intentions, kind words, and even spiritual language. But now, you know the truth. You've seen how manipulation isn't always loud. It's often quiet, patient, and layered. It shows up as false charm, subtle blame, emotional withdrawal, or even self-sacrificing behavior that guilt trips instead of gives. And the biggest sign? When your soul starts shrinking. If you find yourself feeling smaller, less clear, more confused around someone, that's the sign. When your boundaries are constantly negotiated, your emotions minimized, and your freedom quietly erased, that's the sign. And when your intuition whispers, this doesn't feel right, that's always the sign. You deserve relationships that nourish, not deplete. People who see your growth as sacred, not threatening. Love that uplifts your essence, not manipulates your empathy. The sign to run isn't just about them. It's about you, reclaiming your power, protecting your peace, and choosing alignment over attachment. If something in this video opened your eyes or spoke to your story, I invite you to share your reflections in the comments. Your voice could be the mirror someone else needs. And if you're on the journey of healing and awakening, subscribe for more videos like this, because your evolution deserves guidance, protection, and light. Ready to keep growing? Watch the next video on spiritual red flags in relationships, what gurus won't tell you. It's the perfect continuation of this truth. And always remember, real love never asks you to become less of yourself.